On the freezing morning of the 14th of December, 1825, St. Petersburg lay wrapped in snow and mist as Russia stood at a decisive turning point in its history. Tsar Alexander I had died suddenly, plunging the vast empire into confusion because by law the throne should have passed to his elder brother, Grand Duke Constantine, yet Constantine had secretly renounced his claim 3 years earlier, a decision known only to a handful within the imperial family. So when news of Alexander's death spread, the entire nation assumed Constantine was the new Tsar. Troops swore loyalty in his name, officials pledged obedience, and even his younger brother Nicholas took the oath as a matter of protocol. But when the truth emerged that Nicholas was in fact the designated heir, Russia drifted through 2 weeks of political uncertainty and ruin. And it was precisely this fragile interregnum that a group of reform-minded army officers had been waiting for. History would remember them as the Decembrists, men such as Kondraty Ryleyev, Nikita Muravyev, Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, and Colonel Pavel Pestel, who had spent years organizing secret societies and debating plans to end autocracy, abolish serfdom, and introduce a constitution that would bind the ruler to law. Inspired by the political transformations they had witnessed in Europe after the defeat of Napoleon, when Nicholas declared himself Tsar in the early hours of December and ordered all regiments in the capital to swear a new oath of allegiance, around 800 soldiers of the Moscow regiment refused, shouting Constantine and Constitution, as they marched to Senate Square, though many ordinary soldiers scarcely understood what a constitution meant, while their officers hoped that a dramatic show of defiance would rally thousands more and force Nicholas to accept sweeping reforms. Yet at the crucial moment, their chosen leader, Prince Trubetskoy, failed to appear, leaving the rebels without clear direction as they stood for hours in the bitter cold, uncertain and exposed. While Nicholas I was only 29 years old, but resolute and disciplined, summoned loyal regiments and positioned artillery around the square. Personally riding out to assess the situation, a final attempt at negotiation was made when the respected General Count Miloradovich approached the insurgents to persuade them to submit. But a shot rang out, and the general fell mortally wounded, closing the door to compromise. As daylight faded and temperatures dropped further below freezing, Nicholas gave the decisive command to fire, and cannon loaded with grapeshot tore into the ranks of the rebels, scattering them in panic, some fleeing across the frozen Neva River, only for artillery fire to shatter the ice beneath their feet, sending men plunging into the icy waters, and within a few brutal hours the uprising in the capital was crushed. Meanwhile in Ukraine, the Southern Society, led by Sergei Moravabistal, launched its own revolt, proclaiming liberty and equality, but government forces quickly suppressed it, and its leader was captured wounded. The Empire, Ryleyev, Pestel, Trubetskoy, and many others were imprisoned in the Peter and Paul fortress, interrogated under Nicholas's direct supervision as he sought to understand whether this had been merely a conspiracy of ambitious officers, or a deeper symptom of unrest within Russian society. Ultimately, 121 men were brought to trial, and 5, Pavel Pestel, Kondraty Ryleyev, Sergei Muravyev, Pestel, Mikhail Bestusov, Roman, and Pyotr Kakovsky, were sentenced to death, while many others were condemned to hard labor in Siberia, some accompanied voluntarily by their devoted wives in acts of loyalty that would become legendary. On the 13th of July, 1826, before dawn, the 5 leaders were led to the gallows. And when 3 ropes snapped during the first attempt, some observers whispered that it was a sign from God. Yet Nicholas ordered the execution repeated, and this time it was carried out to completion, marking the bloody end of Russia's first organized revolutionary movement. Nicholas drew from the revolt not a lesson in reform, but in control, tightening censorship, strengthening the secret police, and shaping his reign around the doctrine of orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality. Yet though the Decembrists had failed militarily, their sacrifice resonated through Russia's intellectual circles, inspiring writers and future revolutionaries who saw in them the first courageous challenge to Tsarist absolutism. And when revolution returned to Russia in 1917, many look back to that frozen December day in 1825, and a small band of officers, dared to stand in Senate Square and imagine a different future for their nation, proving that even in an empire of vast power, the idea of liberty could not be permanently silenced.